Hi, everyone. Welcome to November's version of the Reading Research Recap. For this edition, I strayed a little bit from the normal RCTs, randomized controlled trials, and experimental studies that I usually cover because I came across this really cool longitudinal study on what happens. So, what are the outcomes of students who have word reading or comprehension difficulties at mid-childhood? So, it tracked these students who are struggling in mid-childhood all the way up through their academic career, but also through their employment opportunities at the age of 20. So I thought that was really neat because it kind of speaks to this underlying why. Why do I focus on all these RCTs and experimental studies to help struggling readers? The data for this study came from the Avon longitudinal study in the UK. And these students were tracked from mid-childhood on different assessments, so national test scores, national test outcomes, as well as employment all the way up to age 20. So what did the researchers find in terms of results? Well, no surprise here, those readers who were struggling in mid-childhood, whether it was word reading or comprehension difficulties, had less favorable, so they had poorer outcomes in terms of academic achievement, as well as employment opportunities. Now, there were some specific differences. Out of the three groups, the students who were diagnosed with comprehension difficulties in mid-childhood were the least likely to be employed or involved in higher education at the age of 20. Now, importantly, SES played a really important role. So these results do not hold. They're not statistically significant when SES is factored into the model, which means that SES, socioeconomic status, is a protective factor. This isn't the type of study that has direct practical implications, but I think it does drive home the take-home message that it's absolutely critical to identify and help remediate students who have problems with reading, whether they struggle with word reading or comprehension. It's really important to address those early on. All right, that's all that I have in terms of the deep dive on this study for this month, but I intentionally kept it a little bit shorter because next is my coverage from the Reading League Conference in Charlotte. I'm here in Charlotte at the Reading League Conference, and if you're not familiar with the Reading League's annual conference, it's a great one for practitioners. You might not find the latest cutting-edge research findings, but you're going to find a lot of great practical implications for the classroom. It's the first day of the conference, and there were actually three really great sessions on schools and districts implementing the science of reading that I want to share. I absolutely loved this panel on North Carolina's state initiatives that led to increased reading proficiency across the state. There were so many intentional decisions and legislation from leadership that led to these amazing outcomes. A theme across all of the sessions on implementing SOR in the classroom, districts, and states was an emphasis on consistency, vertical alignment, and sustainability. There's an interesting session by Dr. Wesley Hoover who stated that even though the Simple View model is not a developmental or teaching model, rather it shows what students need to have mastered, it's more of a cognitive model, he argues that teachers still need to know about it. I was completely taken in by this session by Dr. Lorraine Hammond and Tanya Sari and Pam Snow on how they improve teacher education and teacher outcomes in Australia, despite so much pushback. It was so inspiring. Dr. K. Wijicumar's session on the CAP program that she created was as entertaining as it was important. This is a rigorous program to help kids with comprehension. It's been IES funded and it meets the What Works Clearinghouse without reservations, which means that it's really rigorous. It's only a 2-day conference, and here are my highlights from the second day of the conference. Started the morning with Dr. Tiffany Hogan's talk about developmental language disorder and how it can lead to comprehension issues later on. The importance of early screening was underscored by this quote saying that the research, the data from some of her studies was so predictive, so early reading screener scores for students was so predictive that they weren't red flags, rather it was a crystal ball. Dr. Jessica Tost talked about her free program Word Connections to help struggling readers who just can't seem to crack multisyllabic decoding of words. I love Dr. Jan Hasbrook's talk where she proposed a new model. So instead of saying, is someone on grade level, we inform teachers about appropriate developmental benchmarks of reading, and we use those instead to indicate where a student is at and what we're doing to bring them up to the right place. One of the most moving sessions, and my favorite session from the entire conference, was this panel of 4 doctors, so 4 MDs, talking about the health implications and specifically life or death outcomes when it comes to reading difficulties. The data from the studies that they shared was pretty sobering and heavy at times. Not only does reading difficulty and low literacy lead to behavioral and health outcomes, but it really is a matter of life and death. So there was data on life expectancy as well as suicide and infant mortality. I hate to end on such a sad and negative note, so I'm going to flip that around to the positive and just say that teaching reading certainly extends lives and might even save a life. The last few days have been really entertaining and informative, so huge thank you to the Reading League for putting on such a wonderful conference. I'll go ahead and share some of these pictures I took, even though apparently I'm the worst at taking selfies, as I managed to give everyone in the frame a triple chin. Anyways, thanks again to the Reading League. I had a wonderful time. All right, that's all that I have for November's edition, and I'll see everyone in December.